Fixing bugs in pointers. More debugging in this video. So we saw how to debug using the replit, using GDB and replit. We've seen Python tutor. Now we're going to try and fix some bugs in pointers. Pointers can have so many different types of bugs. And we're going to see how to do this using GDB on the Linux server, PCC's Linux server. You will be required to use this as you go through our computer science courses, 162 and 260. So it's good to get used to it. Uninitialized pointers are the first cause of lots of problems. So pointers created, set to null PTR, but it's really not pointing to anything. So let's see how this looks in GDB. So let me log in. Okay, so I'm logged in. I'm going to make these windows a little bigger so it's clear, the text in there. Okay, and two windows are always good, so you can kind of see your code in one window and do the debugging in the other window. And it's also good practice for you to see how to do a few things on Unix. So CD to your folder, I have my CS161B. Then I'm going to go to samples and pointers. So if you hit tab, and if there's no other folder with those starting letters, then it's going to fill it for you like that. So I just hit tab. Okay, so then here I have a couple of different bad pointer code. And the first one is uninitialized pointers. So vi uninit pointers.cpp. And here's the code. Notice. So what happens when you run this code, you go here and you do /uninit ptrs, and notice you get a segmentation fault. So where do you start? So go to GDB and do / your executable name. And then we're going to start by setting some breakpoints. So set a breakpoint right in the beginning of your code in that line. If you notice at the bottom, it shows you line numbers, or you can always turn on line numbers in VI. So I'm going to set my breakpoint on line 7. So B space 7 will set the breakpoint. And then R to run will run the code, and it will stop at that line 7. As you can see here, it stops at that line 7. So I'm going to do N for next line. And usually when you do N, this line is not executed yet. So if you look at P space PTR to see what address is in PTR, notice it says 0x0. You can also do P space star PTR, dereference it and see what it's pointing to. And it says I cannot access memory at address 0x0. But the next line that's going to execute is trying to put a value 12 into this PTR, which is really not pointing to anything. So if you do next, here's where you get your 6 segmentation fault error that says I'm trying to access a memory that I cannot access. And there it says cannot access memory. And so that's when it crashes. So if you're going to have a pointer, you want to make sure that it's actually pointing to something. So you want to go here and say int, for example, x equals 15. And then you want to go here and say ptr equals and x. So that makes the PTR point to x, and then you are changing the value of x through the star PTR. That's really what you're doing. So if you compile that and go over here and do okay, that compiles it, and then run it first. See if you still get, now you get 12. You don't get your segmentation fault error, right? So the value of star PTR is 12, which is what we did here. And if you step through the code using GDB just like we did before and print the address and see, you will notice that the address of X is the same as what PTR is pointing to. So if I put a breakpoint on line 7 again, and then you say run, it runs to that first line, you say next, next, one more next, and then you say I mean, my comment is not a very good thing, but that's okay. Ampersand X prints the address to X. Now you print PTR, PTR holds an address, so don't need to say ampersand sign or asterisk because the value of PTR is the same address that is X's address because it's pointing to it. Now, if you do print X, it should say 15. If you say print star PTR, it says 15 as well because we haven't quite changed it. Now we have changed it. So if you go asterisk PTR, it says, well, that's 12. You print X, that's also 12 because they're both pointing to the same thing. Okay, so make sure your pointer is actually initialized and pointing to something before you can do anything with it.